knows the butterfly effect? What is it? Somebody tell me.
Butterfly.
Yeah. Across the world, right? The butterfly effect, if the butterfly flaps its wings, that it changes all these different things, the environment, it can create more pollen, so that way, in its immediate kind of area, it can create more flowers and so on and so forth, and across the world, it can create a tornado or a hurricane or whatever. So in '63, it was actually a thesis, and it was laughed at by this gentleman who wrote this as a thesis. It was laughed at by the professors, it was laughed at from the scientists, and really it just stayed in our culture because of urban legend, because of, it was just so fascinating to think, could that really be possible? And really we see it in our own lives, our butterfly effects. If you sit back and think about it, Desiree announced me yesterday for the speaker rotation. As she was announcing kind of my BNI life, it was like the butterfly effect. YMA wouldn't have been there if I wouldn't have moved to Kona, if I wouldn't have decided to be ambassador, so on and so forth, right? So there are butterfly effects, if we think about it, in all of our lives. In the 90s, it was finally proven to be true that a single butterfly, a tiny little beautiful butterfly, could affect the weather across the world. It's pretty fascinating when we think about that. So why am I telling you this? I actually have a quick story and then I'll tell you why. So let me give you a historical, documented butterfly effect. In 1907, Norman Borlaug won the Nobel Peace Prize. Does anybody know who he is?
No.
He is the one, he won a Nobel Peace Prize for hybridizing wheat and corn for arid climates. He saved 2 billion people from famine. 2 billion people for creating this hybridized corn and wheat for arid climates. So he won the Nobel Peace Prize in the 70s. However, he was actually hired by a guy named Henry Wallace, who was the vice president of the United States. I believe he was underneath Truman. I'm not really good with my presidents and VPs. Truman was the one who served 4 years. Did he serve 4 years? Roosevelt, okay. So he was one of the 3 of the VPs. But Henry Wallace had a love for agriculture, had a love for sustainability back in the day, we'll call it. And he actually started a plant in Mexico, or a lab, / both, that was creating sustainability, like looking into ways that we could save the world through agriculture. So really, when you think about it, it wasn't Norman who won the Nobel Peace Prize, really, that deserved it. Probably it was Henry Wallace, right? Would you agree? But the story goes on. So a young George Washington Carver. Does anybody know who that is?
Yeah.
What did he do?
Peanuts.
Peanuts.
Right, that's right.
He saved farmers. I listened to a couple of things on him because I know him about peanuts too, but how that started was he saved farmers because farmers would plant corn every single year over and over and over and over again. Well, he created crop rotations to replenish the earth, okay? But he also did come up with all these peanuts. But as a 19-year-old student in Iowa, his science teacher had a 6-year-old boy. And this fascinating man who taught us to rotate our crops, who created over 266 different peanut applications, 88 different sweet potato applications, and all these other slew of things. He got to take this little 6-year-old boy on field trips on the weekends to just kind of expose him to his life. This little boy was Henry Wallace. Pretty cool, huh? So, but I'm going to go one more depth. So technically, George Washington Carver probably should have won the Nobel Peace Prize, right? He had a cause in the effect. So when, back in the day when there was slavery, certain states were, slavery states and certain states weren't. And Missouri was a slavery state. And there was this couple named Moses and Susan. And Moses and Susan kept slaves, or kept African Americans in their homes to protect them. And one day, late at night, a bunch of jerks came, and hooded men, and came and killed a bunch of people and took this woman named Mary and her baby son named George. And Mary was best friends with Susan. They were like 2 peas of the pod, and Susan was so distraught that Moses, for his wife and for this little boy's sake, actually made all these phone calls, well, not phone calls, but put out the word, and Coconut Wireless, and met up with 4 horsemen on the Kansas City border, and traded his only horse for a baby that was pretty much Moses, or at that time, George was pretty much, he had whooping cough, he was packed up, and then he walked himself back to, and he said, I'm going to raise you like my own, I'm going to treat you like you deserve to be treated, and I'm going to give you my name, George Washington Carver. So really, in the big scheme of things, Moses Carver and Susan Carver saved his life, right? And so really, they won the Nobel Peace Prize. Are you guys all following me?
Yes.
Okay. I thought that story was fascinating. I was crying the first time I heard it. I was like, wow, that's so beautiful. But the reason why I'm telling you this is because every little thing that we do, small or profound, it has an effect. And we never truly know the effect that we have. So in B&I, for instance, and for those of you who are new and haven't heard me speak, when I speak, I'm not just talking about B&I. I'm going to wrap it back into B&I because that's my job. But you can apply this to your life. Like, think about it. Like, all of your butterfly effects that you've had. If Moses had the intention and the idea of going to save this little boy, but didn't put forth the action, what would have happened? Obviously, we don't know. But it would have been different, right? So, the butterfly effect isn't based on intention. I definitely believe we set our intentions, right? I'm a manifester, I believe in karma, and I believe in all of that. But if I don't put my foot in front of the other foot, then the universe isn't going to just drop that crap on my lap, right? Like, I have to put in some work. So what I want you to do is simply, I want you to reflect on your butterfly effect. I want you to think about the roles that you play, how you show up each day in your life, in B&I. We do the poems, and we have the traffic light reports, and the traffic light reports, for those of you who don't know, the leadership knows, but it is a trend. We look at the health of your chapter on a 6-month period, and so we can see the trends, essentially, the butterfly effects. The things that were put into motion, or the actions that were done, 2 years ago, are still affecting your chapter today. Actually, the actions that were put place 4 years ago, when I stepped into this room, in another room, but in this chapter, so all the cylinders still aren't firing. But when I stepped into this chapter, it's dramatically changed. The people would have fell on the floor if I would have said, in 4 years, you're going to be hitting $3.5 million in closed business. Wouldn't they, Desiree? Wouldn't they, Marianne? Yeah, wouldn't they, Crystal? You were part of that. They would have died. But that's the effect that we all have. We all play a part in this, what we call B&I. So are we being honest? Are we being truthful? Are we living with intention and putting forth the action? The intention is great. We have to put it out there. But it is putting into action what we need. Alika just said that and I've had this talk with him, that he wants to do this bike race around. Him standing up today is finally putting forth action into something that he wants to do that could dramatically change a child's life, that could dramatically change lives to come. I know that this is a little bit bigger, right? And I can't help myself that this is the way that I think. So if this is too big for you, I want you to think about your inner circle. When you don't show up on time, that's a butterfly effect. And it doesn't just affect you. That's the whole point. Your actions, regardless of what you think, don't just affect you. In B&I, when you're late, people notice. It affects your referability. But it also affects, if Desiree's late and Rebecca wants to refer her, then it affects Rebecca because she doesn't want to refer somebody who's going to be late. So this week, I want you to think about your butterfly effect. I want you to really sit and think about, how can I change just a little bit today? What more intention, what more action can I put forth? Because it's just that little step in front of the other. It's not those big leaps. Thank you.